It started with a single invasion, and now the world is holding its breath. When Russian troops crossed into Ukraine back in early 2022, most people thought the fight would be contained to that one country. But as months turned into years, a much bigger picture began to emerge. What if Ukraine wasn't the final stop on Russia's path, but just the beginning? Now, according to new warnings from one of Europe's top intelligence minds, that unsettling possibility may be turning into reality. Meet Martin Jaeger, Germany's new spy chief, and a man whose words carry serious weight in the world of global intelligence. With a career spanning the German Foreign Office, the Federal Chancellery, and diplomatic missions in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Ukraine, Jaeger isn't someone who speaks lightly. This fall, he officially took the reins of Germany's Federal Intelligence Service, BND, becoming only the 14th person to lead it since its founding in 1956. So when he raised an alarm in Berlin's Bundestag on October 13, 2025, world leaders paid attention. At the annual public intelligence hearing, Jaeger didn't mince words. His message was blunt and chilling. Europe must prepare. A Russian strike could happen far sooner than anyone expects. He urged NATO allies not to assume they have until 2029 or later, warning that complacency could be catastrophic. This wasn't a distant hypothetical, it was a call to action. Across Europe and beyond, that warning echoed through military halls and political chambers. Many experts and commanders have been sounding similar alarms in recent months. One of them, General Alexis Grinkowicz, head of the U.S. European Command and Supreme Allied Commander Europe, shared an equally urgent forecast. Speaking at a defense conference in Wiesbaden, Germany, earlier this year, he cautioned that the world might be just 2 years away from a global conflict, one that could involve both Russia and China coordinating major offensives by 2027. His message to defense leaders was crystal clear. It's time to scale up weapons production and strengthen NATO's readiness, now. But what's driving this new wave of urgency among Western intelligence and military circles? And how real is the threat that Russia could turn its attention from Ukraine to NATO itself? While intelligence leaders sound the alarm, NATO's own Secretary General, Mark Rutte, has joined the chorus with a warning that's difficult to ignore. Speaking at Chatham House in London, Rutte laid out a staggering comparison that left many in the room silent. In just 3 months, Russia now produces as much ammunition as NATO can make in an entire year. That imbalance isn't just a number. It's a wake-up call. According to Rutte, Moscow's defense industry is working at full speed, expected to churn out 1,500 tanks, 3,000 armored vehicles, and 200 Iskander missiles this year alone. With that kind of buildup, he cautioned, Russia could be ready to confront NATO directly within 5 years. Later, in a candid interview with the New York Times, Rutte didn't soften his tone. He said that unless European nations urgently boost their military spending and production, they might soon face a grim reality. One where learning Russian isn't just a joke, but a survival skill. His message hit hard. If Europe doesn't step up now, it could be too late later. Meanwhile, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky continues to warn that his country's fight isn't just for Ukraine. It's a fight that's holding back a much larger storm. He believes Russia's goal has always been to test NATO's unity and readiness. If Putin sees an opening, Zelensky has said, he'll take it. In his eyes, Ukraine is the barrier keeping that door closed. For now. But how long that door stays shut depends on NATO's will to prepare. Over in Germany, BND Chief Martin Jaeger believes that the confrontation with Russia may not even be a question of if or when. To him, it's already happening, just not in the traditional sense of war. We are already under fire today, he warned. The difference is that this battle isn't being fought only with bombs and bullets. Russia's aggression now takes the form of hybrid warfare, actions designed to blur the line between peace and war. Jaeger described it as a cold peace, a fragile in-between where Europe faces a constant stream of hidden attacks and provocations that could erupt into open conflict at any time. According to both Jaeger and several European defense leaders, Russia's tactics are clear but complex. Cyber attacks, disinformation campaigns, election meddling, and espionage have become everyday weapons. Russian drones have repeatedly entered NATO airspace in Poland and Estonia, testing how far they can go before provoking a reaction. Beyond that, online propaganda spreads confusion, while covert operations target critical infrastructure, from sabotaging communication lines to intimidating opposition figures living abroad. It's war in disguise, a psychological and digital battlefield meant to divide and weaken Western unity from within. Germany's spy chief, Martin Jaeger, didn't stop at warning about cyber attacks and propaganda. He made it clear that these tactics are no longer isolated events. The hybrid methods Russia uses are now everywhere, he explained, stressing that the frequency of these incidents shows we're already in a new kind of standoff, one where Moscow openly sees Europe not as a neighbor, but as an enemy. Jaeger believes that Germany itself has become Russia's main target inside Europe, precisely because it's the European Union's largest power and one of Ukraine's strongest backers since the war began. To him, Russia's ultimate goal is unmistakable: to expand its sphere of influence, even if that means risking a direct confrontation with NATO. Backing Jaeger's assessment, Sinan Selin, head of Germany's domestic intelligence agency, the Federal Office for the Protection of the Constitution BFV, shared a similar view. He called Russia the main perpetrator behind growing acts of sabotage across Germany and the rest of Europe. In his words, Moscow's strategy is deliberately aggressive, constantly adjusting its tactics to probe for weakness. Selin said these operations are designed to weaken liberal democracies from within, eroding trust in institutions and dividing societies. According to him, Germany is already seeing a wide range of espionage, disinformation, interference, sabotage, and cyber attacks carried out by foreign actors, all orchestrated to keep Europe on edge. And there's plenty of proof to back that up. The most striking examples have come from the skies. On September 10th, over 20 Russian drones flew beyond Ukraine's borders, crossing into Polish airspace, a direct violation of NATO territory. Within minutes, the Polish Air Force scrambled fighter jets, joined by several Allied aircraft, and shot down multiple drones before they could reach populated areas. The incident was so serious that Poland triggered Article 4 of the NATO treaty, which calls for emergency consultations whenever a member nation feels its security is threatened. The world reacted with shock and urgency. Just 2 days later, NATO announced Operation Eastern Century, a massive, multinational effort to fortify the alliance's eastern flank. Air, land, and naval forces from countries like Germany, France, the US, and the UK were rapidly deployed across Eastern Europe to signal unity and deterrence. But the provocations didn't stop there. Only 24 hours after NATO's announcement, Romania scrambled fighter jets of its own when a Russian drone entered its airspace, the same moment Russian forces were launching strikes near the Ukrainian border. And within the same week, Estonia reported yet another violation. 3 Russian MiG-31 fighter jets intruded into its airspace for about 12 minutes over the Gulf of Finland. According to Estonia's foreign ministry, this was the 4th Russian airspace breach of the year, but the minister described this one as unprecedentedly brazen, marking a dangerous new phase in Moscow's behavior. These repeated incursions, analysts say, are not random. They're tests, carefully designed to see how fast and how forcefully NATO will respond. It's a game of nerves as much as numbers, where hesitation could be seen as weakness. Do you think Russia is testing NATO's limits to see how far it can push before triggering a major response? And if these drone and jet incursions keep happening, should NATO respond more aggressively, or would that risk turning tension into all-out war? Whenever another drone crosses a NATO border or a radar screen flashes with an unidentified signal, Moscow's response is always the same: deny, deflect, and downplay. Kremlin officials have repeatedly brushed off accusations, claiming that any drone straying into European airspace must have done so by mistake, or worse, that the whole thing was a Western exaggeration. But for many world leaders, those excuses don't hold up anymore. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky put it bluntly: Russian military personnel know exactly where their drones are headed and how long they can stay in the air. The routes are always calculated. This cannot be an accident or a mistake. Every flight path and incursion is intentional, a slow, creeping expansion of the war. He compared it to Russia's familiar playbook: start with small steps, test the limits, and when no one pushes back hard enough, push further. And Europe has been seeing more of those small steps almost daily. In the last weeks of September 2025, mysterious drones began popping up over multiple European countries, not just near the conflict zone, but deep inside NATO territory. Between September 22nd and 28th, strange unmanned aircraft were spotted hovering near both civilian airports and military installations in Norway and Denmark, sometimes forcing major hubs like Copenhagen, Oslo, and Billund to temporarily shut down for safety reasons. The disruptions were brief but alarming, leaving travelers stranded and defense officials scrambling for answers. Then came more reports, this time from Germany's northern state of Schleswig-Holstein, where multiple drones were seen on September 26th, flying near restricted zones. German authorities suspected these were not hobbyists or lost devices, but espionage attempts, drones possibly mapping or monitoring sensitive infrastructure. Just a day later, a drone appeared near a power plant in Finland's Rovaniemi region, and on the same day, 3 more were spotted circling Vilnius airport in Lithuania, delaying several commercial flights. So far, there's been no official confirmation that these drones were Russian. But when so many suspicious incidents happen across so many countries within a single week, the odds of coincidence seem impossibly slim. Many defense analysts believe these sightings are all part of a coordinated Kremlin operation, an intelligence gathering and psychological campaign meant to unsettle Europe and test how far Russia can go without facing a direct response. And it's not just drones. Over the last 18 months, investigators in Germany have uncovered signs of possible sabotage operations targeting military factories and defense suppliers. Quiet explosions, unexplained fires, and cyber breaches that disrupt production lines vital to Ukraine's war effort. Each case, while different, seems to follow the same pattern: stealth, precision, and perfect timing, trademarks of modern Russian espionage. Over the past year and a half, Germany has found itself at the center of what intelligence officials quietly describe as a hidden battlefield, one where the weapons aren't always missiles or tanks, but fire, code, and fear. Between April 2024 and October 2025, three disturbing incidents have painted a pattern too clear to ignore. The first came on May 3, 2024, when a sudden blaze tore through Deal Metal Applications in Berlin, a facility crucial to producing Iris-T missiles, part of the air defense systems Germany had sent to help Ukraine fend off Russian air assaults. The fire caused major structural damage and halted production for weeks. Although investigators initially pointed to a technical malfunction, whispers began circulating that Russian agents might have played a hand. Western media, citing unnamed officials, reported that the fire fit a growing pattern of Kremlin-backed sabotage targeting factories tied to Ukraine's military support network. Then, just 2 months later in July 2024, a far darker plot came to light. Working together, German and U.S. authorities exposed a Russian assassination attempt aimed at Armin Paperger, the CEO of Rheinmetall, Germany's largest defense manufacturer. Paperger, who has been instrumental in ramping up arms production for Ukraine, was reportedly marked for elimination as part of a Russian campaign to intimidate and disrupt Western arms leadership. The plot was thwarted in time, but its message was unmistakable. Russia was willing to kill to cripple Europe's defense industry. One NATO official at the time didn't mince words. We're seeing sabotage. We're seeing assassination plots. We're seeing arson. We're seeing things that cost human lives. This is a coordinated campaign of covert Russian operations, and it's strategic. Unfortunately, the pattern didn't stop there. On June 26, 2025, a new wave of attacks struck the city of Erfurt, where multiple Rheinmetall MAN military trucks were set ablaze in what investigators suspect was an arson attack. Almost instantly, pro-Russian channels on Telegram celebrated the fires, claiming responsibility and calling them a blow to NATO's war machine. While police have yet to confirm Russian involvement, intelligence sources say the attack fits neatly into the same mold as previous incidents: silent, coordinated, and politically charged.
If you've made it this far into the video, it means you're enjoying what we do here at Euro Bulletin. Take a second to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss more updates and insights from Europe and its partners. Let's dive in more into the subject.
Going back even further, the roots of this campaign can be traced to a 2023 cyber attack on Rheinmetall's headquarters in Düsseldorf, carried out by the Black Basta ransomware group. Although Germany never officially blamed Russia, analysts noted the fingerprints of a Kremlin-affiliated operation. The timing, targets, and tactics all matched earlier patterns. And since then, the pattern has only grown stronger. In the past 2 years alone, German authorities have arrested over a dozen individuals tied to Russian espionage and sabotage operations. One of them, detained in Munich earlier this year, allegedly plotted to sabotage tank production lines destined for Ukraine. Intelligence reports suggest that Moscow's agents often recruit locals, paying them to carry out dangerous missions, from small acts of arson to gathering classified information on weapons shipments. This isn't limited to Germany. From France to Finland, security agencies across Europe are warning that Russia's covert war now stretches across borders, a campaign designed not just to damage factories, but to disrupt democracies and sow doubt among citizens. Across Europe, intelligence agencies are beginning to realize that Russia's hybrid warfare is no longer operating in the shadows. It's gone mainstream. One NATO official recently described the situation as an unprecedented escalation, warning that Moscow's covert operations now stretch across every stage of the weapons supply chain headed to Ukraine. It's everything, the official said, from the point of production and origin, to storage, to the decision-makers, and even to the actual delivery. It's bold. Russia is attempting to intimidate, and it's not afraid to use any and all possible tactics to achieve its ends. That warning isn't just theoretical, it's already playing out in real life. In Poland, for instance, investigators uncovered a chilling network of Russian agents who had been recruiting young men through Telegram, paying them small amounts of cryptocurrency to complete seemingly random tasks. At first, those jobs looked harmless. Spray painting pro-Russian graffiti across Polish cities or snapping photos of public places. But over time, the assignments became darker. Planting surveillance cameras near military bases, sabotaging humanitarian aid routes, even burning Ukrainian-owned businesses. What began as petty vandalism evolved into a full-blown espionage pipeline. Polish security forces eventually caught and arrested several individuals working for Russian handlers, including one man allegedly linked to a plot targeting Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky himself. And these incidents aren't isolated. The same kind of covert recruitment and sabotage has appeared in France, where a 26-year-old pro-Russian Ukrainian was arrested after setting off a homemade bomb at Charles de Gaulle Airport. In the United Kingdom, 5 men were convicted for carrying out an arson attack on a London warehouse filled with supplies bound for Ukraine, an operation that investigators say was ordered directly by Russian intelligence operatives. Even smaller European nations haven't been spared. In Moldova, authorities arrested more than 70 individuals accused of being part of a Russian scheme to disrupt the country's parliamentary elections. According to security officials, the group had been trained in Serbia by Russian instructors who taught them how to incite public unrest, spread disinformation, and resist arrest. The recruits were paid just a few €100. Not much money, but enough to create chaos and confusion. It's a classic Kremlin move. Use locals as pawns in a larger game, letting them take the risk while Moscow reaps the reward. To counter this, Germany's spy chief Martin Jaeger has urged both the European Union and NATO to stand firm. Now is the time for strength and decisiveness, he said, emphasizing that Europe can no longer afford to react slowly. In his view, this is not only a security threat, it's a test of Europe's resilience, unity, and willpower. For Martin Jaeger, one thing is certain: Europe can't afford to hesitate any longer. He believes that when Russia sees restraint, it doesn't interpret it as maturity or diplomacy. It reads it as weakness. We must draw the right conclusions from this, Jaeger warned during his recent address. We must confront our opponents wherever necessary, and to do that, we will need to take higher risks, calculated ones, but consistent and deliberate. For NATO, that means one thing: complacency is no longer an option. The alliance can't afford to watch passively as its defenses are tested and its unity is chipped away. Instead, it must act with strength, readiness, and resilience, showing Moscow that every act of interference will be met with resolve, not hesitation. So, what happens next? While Russia ramps up its disinformation and sabotage campaigns, Europe is quietly advancing too, developing next-generation defense systems that could shift the balance on the battlefield. Among them, a German-built tank killer designed to shred Russian armor with pinpoint precision, the kind of weapon that could change the tempo of future ground wars entirely. Or, if you're more interested in the broader picture, how Ukraine's forces are gradually turning the tide, reclaiming lost territory, and preparing for a new phase in the war, there's plenty to explore there as well. Do you think NATO's increasing strength will deter Russia from further escalation, or could it push the Kremlin to act even faster out of fear? And with new European weapons technology emerging, is the balance of power finally starting to shift? Or are we still only seeing the calm before the storm?